Welcome back to It's a Living with Shelley D. Today, I have a special guest. I will introduce him. We'll talk about his jobs. And so my special guest today is Mark D. How you doing, Mark?
Great. Thanks for inviting me on the program.
Awesome. Okay, so I know right now we're kind of going to go backwards a little bit. So we're going to talk about what is the first job you remember holding?
Apart from just mowing lawns for allowance or something, right?
Yeah.
The first, according to Hoyle, job you could say that I earned actual cash from outside the home would have been, and can we say company names or does it matter?
Well,
I mean, we're talking 38 years ago for this one.
I think it'd be pretty safe because you're not going to try to.
I'm not going to badmouth it. It was very straightforward. It was a guy actually at church who asked some of the young men. I was 16 or 15 or 16. And he said he worked at Thornton's gas station, and he said, "I need a few guys."
Thornton's back then, huh?
It was it's still there.
Okay.
It's the same one, but this was '86, and he said, "I need some guys to unload bags of mulch from a semi that's coming in," and so I volunteered. He goes, "It's $5 an hour." I was like, "Oh, righteous bucks for that time."
Yeah.
So I was the only one that showed up.
Oh, no.
And the truck driver was there, and he was asleep in his cab.
Oh.
I show up bright and early, like, wow, golly gee, my first job. And I'm like, I'm here to help you unload the mulch. He goes, okay, let's get started. And we unloaded it, and it was kind of backbreaking, but we got the whole semi unloaded, hundreds of bags of mulch, like 20, 30-pound things. And then, as now, I wasn't in the best of shape, but I managed it. And it's like, oh, okay, 4 hours later, it was done. And he goes, here you go, $5 an hour. He just hands me a 20, off the books, whatever. Sorry, IRS, that's how it happened. I think the statute of limitations has expired. So, but yeah, he paid me cash on the barrel. That was my first. That's my first real job.
And I wonder why nobody else showed up. Was that people that you knew from church? Or?
Well, I mean, the invite or the announcement order was put out there. He's like, any of you guys who want to earn a little extra money. So, I mean, if 2 or 3 other guys showed up, then...
Did the truck driver help you?
Yeah, we both
Plus, it's a little hard.
it.
Now, did this give you a sense of, I got $20 for just a few hours work, and did you feel like doing something more physical from then on, or? Not
especially. I mean, going back, and of course, we've had this discussion a few times as far as work ethic there was a certain work ethic that was attempted to be established, but on the other hand, there was no real encouragement to just go get a job outside the house.
Yeah.
So, I don't really feel. I don't remember really feeling anything other than, hey, why didn't more guys show up? That's
you were just concentrated on what you were doing.
Kind of, yeah. And I was like, hey, glad to have $20, but I probably, spent it all immediately on moon pies and penny whistles. But I didn't have another job until college, and that was delivering pizzas, which you talk about an adventure.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's anecdotal, but I mean, I was 18, 19, whatever, and, in college for summer school, and had extra time. One of my buddies worked at this pizza place. You know the place I'm talking about. And drove, it said, deliver pizzas, make pizzas. I was like, oh, how hard could that be?
So you made it too?
Yeah, we made pizzas and we delivered them. I couldn't drive a stick shift. And so the owner was like, here's how you drive a stick shift. Good luck.
Oh, my gosh.
And yeah, I failed miserably. And in fact, the guy I worked with, we had 50 pizzas to deliver one Saturday night. And he goes, let me drive the car. And I was like, well, wasn't your license suspended? And you're not allowed to drive? And he goes, yeah, but, you no tell, me no tell. So I was like, okay. So I let him drive, and we wound up pulling into this, some kind of moose lodge or something. And it was this circle drive. It was just like one little small pizza delivered to somebody at the bar there. And we had 30 pizzas left to deliver. It's pouring down rain. We pull into the little circle drive. There's a little awning above us. But then everybody with their big trucks pulls in. They're in front of us and behind us. We couldn't get out. And we're like, can somebody move their truck, please? We need to get out and deliver the rest of these pizzas. And they just stare at us. And so I'm like, what do we do? And he goes, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to drive it in the grass and get us out of here. And we got bogged down immediately. It was just like this little small hatchback, gremlin or whatever. And it got caught right in the middle of the big grassy field between the facility and the road. And wound up having to go back inside, call the owner.
Oh, my gosh.
And then the manager, her husband, had to bring his truck and tow us out. He just hooked a chain up to the bumper, however they did it. But the manager read the riot act.
It's so funny because you were young, a teenager.
I didn't know any better. Yeah. He knew better. He was a couple years older.
It's amazing how you remember those things. It's something as simple as I got bogged down in the grass, and you'll never forget it.
Right, because at that time I was thinking I'll never work in this town again. This has put a permanent blemish on my work record. Yeah, it will. The Department of Labor will be notified.
Well, I think you start out like that when you're young. You think that anything you do is going to be on record.
Yeah.
And nobody will. It's kind of like when you have I hate to say, like in your fourth grade, you get an F. Yeah. You're like, oh no, my academic career is ruined. Nobody will remember.
Which neither of us did. Yeah. But eventually, my grades started to go south, probably in junior high.
Yeah.
And, I acted like it was the biggest deal in the world, but it's really not. But don't listen, kids. Stay in school.
You were not wanting to go into the restaurant business then after working there for a while.
Other than that, I kind of liked it. Once I actually did learn to drive the stick shift and drive it well, I had a blast.
Oh.
I'd drive down. It was summer, so I'd be blasting the music and just speeding down the road and having a time. That was the one big kind of negative experience was letting that guy talk me into.
It was kind of freedom then. So you
definitely, yeah,
and you probably made pretty good tips, just like today, right?
Sometimes I made good tips, but once again, the guy paid me cash under the table, $3 an hour, and this is like 88 or 89. So it was like whatever. It's just nice to be working.
That's what it was back then. It was $5-6 an hour at the most, and like if you were in the waitressing or waitering business, it was $2. I remember I got $2 an hour, one of my first jobs.
Yeah,
and you lived on tips. It was like that's not even legal now.
Yeah, I had no great desire to work in food service, but I did enjoy, working at that one pizza place for that brief period.
So skip forward a few years, and then did you finish college, or what happened then?
I mean, it finished me. I basically stayed in there until it was like, look, sir, your Social Security officer called, and you can no longer attend as a. No, it just. It's a very long, convoluted story, which I won't get into. But basically, I just stayed in college till my 20s. At which point, I was already working full time, and it's like, what's the point of even?
What were you doing full time?
That's when I got my radio job, first radio job.
So you worked in the first radio job. What did you do?
I was a DJ at first because I was a communications major. So I worked college radio and college TV, and. Got the job again through happenstance through a guy at church again. Yeah. Saw him on the TV station affiliated with the radio station, and I said, "Wow, how'd you hook that up?" And he says, "Well, my girlfriend works there," and so I, through her got a interview. I was actually, it was a college internship when I started, but then that parlayed that into part time, and then full time, and then a management position. I was there for about 7 years.
So you were just on-air personality.
On-air personality, and then after about 4 years of that, I also started working at other little TV stations, part-time here and there. I was working 3 jobs at one time. And then I was like, I got to quit one. So I was going to quit that first radio job to work full-time at one of the TV stations. And then the program director said, how would you like to be operations director? I said, okay, yeah, more money. I like money. So I stayed there for about another 3 years as operations director. It was a salaried position. So
were you glad, like in retrospect, do you think, man, if I would have done the TV thing? Or are you kind of thankful that you did the radio?
Oh, I could do a whole episode about, regrets and what I should have done. And if only I had kind of thoughts that hit me at 3 a.m. But no, it's, things shook out the way they did, and I wouldn't trade it, just like my time in California. It's like I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Right. So how long were you in radio?
All in, I mean, if you count college, starting in 89.
Yeah.
And then finally leaving for the last time in 98, so that's 9 years.
Oh, wow.
And then for just a few months when I was working my first security job, they had a radio station on the campus there.
So this is interesting, because you went from a segue to radio, and then you went out to California.
No.
Oh.
No, that was 98 when I left radio, kind of drifted around, did like telemarketing and gas stations and whatever else. Yeah. And then I moved to Missouri and worked at a radio station there. Yeah. So actually maybe closer to 10 years.
I remember that story.
I forgot to block that out.
Yeah, that was hilarious, though, that story. Very, very
about how I lost that job or how I left that job.
No, just the job in general. It was
ridiculous.
Tiny town in Missouri.
Yeah.
And at one point, you said you couldn't stand this girl would come up to you. And it's just the most tiny nuances or whatever nuisances that would get you. And she would say, in the interim.
In the interim, yeah.
Constantly.
That was her catchphrase. And
you wanted to kill her.
She paid somebody at a dictionary company for that phrase a full $1.50. And they said, use it sparingly. And she said, I'm going to use it as much as I want in the interim. And they said, that's not how that goes.
One thing about you, you're very intelligent, but I think it's like when people would use words wrong or phrases wrong or too much, it would just grind you. Even though maybe the formal education wasn't there, it was there anyway. And then they had you being the pest control guy.
Right. Yeah.
At the radio station.
Yeah.
While you were DJing.
I had to set up, because the server room in the back was so hot, they had to open the door, and it was just a field. And so field mice would always come into the station. I had to start setting out traps and disposing of the dead or injured mice. And it was pretty gross, but
that was just not the place for you.
Not at all. No. I mean, that's again another more details about that, but I won't get into.
So you kind of did a few radio stations. Tell me about when you moved to California. What was your dream? What we wanted to do?
Well, we're skipping ahead because I worked security for 7 years, and that was kind of a.
I forgot about that.
Well, that was kind of you had a hand in that because you said there's a radio job at this certain place, and I said, oh, okay, and I applied. It was a dispatcher.
I do remember that you were kind of going in between things, and it said.
Radio dispatcher,
but I didn't know
radio TX or something.
Radio communicator, and I didn't know what that meant because I knew you had done radio. And I said, "Hey, Mark, sounds like a good job." You came back, you said it's a security job, and I was like, "What?" You said you used radio to communicate.
Yeah, you know? But they saw my radio experience and said, "Well, he can communicate effectively, so that's."
And you're not exactly small in stature.
Well, that was how because it didn't pay as much as the guard jobs, and I'd never really worked security guard. But when a position opened up and it paid like $2 more per hour, I applied. And apparently the only prerequisite was to be big and scary looking. So I got that job.
Well, one thing, though, that strikes me, when you went from the radio and you were successful at it and you're kind of known, but yet you had the great voice for it, you just got burnt out?
I got burnt out, and I kind of got my first taste of how middle management in particular and management in general will nitpick and say, I'm not doing my job if I don't critique you, or we would do like these they called them air checks, and they would do like a review of everything you said on air.
Yeah.
And I remember the station manager actually said, you said the word cuz instead of because.
Oh, my.
During your weather. I said, you better wear a jacket because it's going to be cold today. You should say because, not cuz. I was like, oh, please.
Yeah.
That's getting too much into the nitty-gritty.
So I guess it did give you some freedom then when you went to security. And then you worked, I remember you said you worked third shift to start with. For years, you did third shift.
Yeah, pretty much. I think I got eventually transferred to, because I got promoted there too. I got promoted to a corporal from officer after 4 years. And was second shift after that.
Like anything crazy? It was a college campus, so anything crazy happened that you remember?
Lots of crazy things happened. I mean, it was a quote unquote dry campus, but it was very, very wet and soused and inebriated most of the time.
Definitely.
So that's a lot of the calls we got was there's a loud drunken party, or you know, there's somebody staggering and vomiting on the sidewalk.
But you know what's funny is I don't ever remember you throwing down. If anything got that bad, you'd call the police.
Right. We had a couple of tough characters who would talk big. Yeah. But fortunately, nobody ever, came through with it. Yeah. But yeah, we could always call the police if somebody was that threatening.
But you managed to stay out of any kind of controversy there, because I don't ever remember you saying anything about, you got called in for this or that, and you just kind of learned how to. Well, it's Boys Club a little bit.
The department?
Yeah.
I guess, yeah. I think while I was there, and that was from 2000 2007, there was only one female officer in the entire department.
Yeah.
So that is a bit of an outdated concept now.
Yeah. Meanwhile, while you were doing that, you always had side gigs of writing and acting.
Sometimes, not as much back then. I would do like the music stuff, did the barber shopping, and the Philharmonic chorus, and the voiceover stuff once in a while. Which again, you would arrange that sometimes. And I did cartoons for a while for a local paper.
Yeah, good artist.
So, I would just try and dip a toe in different things that caught my fancy. But it was more like, okay, do your 9-to-5 job. Whether you get any pleasure out of it or not, you can always have hobbies that doing things you like. And skipping past California, when I got back from that, that's when I started doing theater in around 2012.
You're big into theater for the past 3 years, but that segment that you were in California, how hard was that? Your idea was to write or act?
I went in really kind of just not knowing what I wanted to do. I was just expecting to show up and knock on the door of California and go, "Can I have a job in showbiz, please?" And they were going to go, "Sure, Sonny, I like your moxie. And come on in, 38-year-old with no experience and no connections." And but I showed up in Burbank, California, stayed with a guy I barely knew just from the internet.
Oh, wow.
And after, fortunately, I didn't get murdered. He was a super nice guy. He worked in sound effects, actually.
Okay.
So he had a few connections here and there, but we were just roommates for about 3 months while I found a place, and then I found a place in North Hollywood. But I mean, it's just like a normal town, and not everybody, but a good large chunk of the people you meet want to get into the business, or they are peripherally involved in the business, or they know somebody. So when I said I want to get into the business, I said, "Oh, I know a guy, and this and that, and promises."
And you did get into the business a little bit.
You
got your SAG card.
I didn't get a SAG card.
No, you did.
I got enough SAG vouchers to get a SAG card, but I would have had to come up with $3,000 to pay the dues to actually get in the SAG.
Oh. And which a SAG card is?
The Screen Actors Guild. Okay. That's your union card, so you can work union jobs and make more money.
Wow.
And the way it works is how I even got into, because I worked security for most of the time I was there, but the first actual showbiz job I had was through this group, which I can name them. They're called Central Casting, and they hire extras for most of the TV shows in the LA area. And you just sign up with them, and then you call the little number, kind of like dialing a radio contest. You hear recordings saying, "Hey, we need 20 people for this show, that show." You need to be, like if it was a show like Desperate Housewives, "We need hip, young, good-looking club goers." And I'd be like, "Beep, next." And I'd be like, "Okay, for a Knight Rider, we need, tough, rough-looking hombres." And they're like, "Okay, I'll go to that one."
Right.
And when we need 100 of you, it's like, "Okay, cool." So I was actually on 2 episodes of Knight Rider. This is the reboot, the one with Val Kilmer.
Oh.
And I was on 2 episodes of that as an extra.
Cool.
And one was a Fight Club fan, and one was as a prisoner.
Oh, wow.
And those were both adventures in and of themselves. In fact, that should be my podcast. Stay tuned for my podcast about my adventures in California.
Well, you did write a little...
I wrote a little memoir about those adventures. The Adventures of a Large Extra.
The Adventures of a Large Extra. Yeah. That's awesome. That is hilarious. I do remember reading it. Super funny. Super funny. And, that was a hard road for you. You did a lot of extra work, TV. You kind of got ready to move on after Cali. You said this is
it's tough to maintain a living.
It's a lot maintaining.
It's a very expensive place to live.
I realized if you have somebody like a family that's going to support you while you worked in it for 10 plus years, I think people can make it, but it's just not that feasible on your own. I hate these stories. I came to California with $5 in my pocket. Bull crap.
All right, George Burns. Yeah, maybe that worked in 1905.
Yeah,
but
it's not going to work now.
Now it's who you know.
It's who you know.
It's a very stark reality of how the industry works. Yeah. You absolutely have to know the right people, and those people have to be helping you.
Yeah, because really you can write them under the table.
And these days, look at the technology we're using now. You can make your own radio shows, TV shows, movies, cartoons, whatever you want.
Right, yes.
So that's what a lot of people are doing now, just independently, and going on the internet and making their own Hollywood.
Yeah, and like you have showed, you wrote some plays, super funny. I've seen them, super funny. And the actors were fantastic. You wrote it, directed, even acted some, and so funny. And I'm like, man, I wish that would be like a troupe would pick those up. I don't really know what'll happen to those. I think the people acted in them, and it just kind of. That was that. But it got a great reaction. I'm like, why don't people see? I don't understand. I don't know. I wish you could sell it to a traveling troupe or something. Yeah,
and as long as I'm wishing it like a It's not unheard of that somebody, writes a thing and they copyright it, they protect it.
Yes.
Because I'd come up with ideas. I came up with that, what was the guy who killed his roommates movie?
Yes.
And then 2 years after I came with the idea and shot my own independent film, a little 12-minute short film about a guy who, just for the audience's sake, I wrote it. So now they have to have this final face-off strength of each other.
But someone actually made that movie.
Somebody made a very similar movie called Dead Man on Campus about 2 years after I made mine.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Well, it just goes to show you have a good idea.
Right.
Yeah. So then after you came back from all that and you continued to do local plays and, films and funny things, then you started working. When did you start working at the job you're at now?
2012.
2012.
So 12 years ago.
Was that, okay, so you kind of did a few things and then you started working at a hospital security about 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, and how's that been going?
It's not without its ups and downs, but this is just like any other job. And as you and I have personally discussed many times in the past, every job is going to have its ups and downs. Yeah. Every job is going to have, middle management nitpicking, humming fluorescent lights, squeaky chairs, insufferable customers or clients, unbearable coworkers, stifling conditions, low wages, intolerable treatment, not allowing you to take a bathroom break for 8 hours,
Crazy.
that sort of thing. So with that in mind, it's like, just stick with it as best you can, because what I learned from leaving U of E after, from thinking I can do better than this was, oh wow, what was I thinking for the next 2 years?
Yes. That's where people, when they leave a job, they're like, what have I done?
Yeah. I had it so good there, I didn't realize it.
And the security and the insurance and all that stuff, that you leave and then you scramble. Because I've said that many times to myself, if I get this last job, I will never, worry again. Now as we're getting older, there's so much more relaxation because you feel like, you know what, I can get Social Security in a few years. And so I'm not that worried about, even today at work, I'm looking, this girl had her follow-up training session for, via Zoom. I'm thinking, I'm so glad I'm not career-driven. It bores me to death. I can't take it. Yeah. I hate it. One more training session, I'll want to scratch my eyes out. I can't do it. I just hate rules. I hate being, I can't. It's really, I worked in a hospital setting too. And I want to you have more tolerance than I have. Let's say that.
It's a double-edged sword, because either you are a lackey following the rules or you are some kind of boss making the rules, because even in a supervisory position, I found it's like, okay, heavy lies the head that wears the crown. You had your own salon at one point.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, who do I complain to? Nobody. I'm at the top.
That's true. I never had any desire to be at the top.
At least you can hand off the responsibility to somebody else. Yeah. It's like, hey, here's a customer complaint or whatever. It's like, talk to my boss. I had nothing to do with it.
And I do kind of like to be in the lower level. But although it's frustrating at times, when I went through college and I finally got a degree, everybody I kept saying, oh, it's such a struggle. And they said, don't worry, it'd be worth it. It'd be worth it. And I got out. I started $8 an hour. I thought, what the heck? And I remember my dad saying, well, you have to start at the bottom rung. And I'm like, I'm not going to start at the bottom rung. I wanted to start from the top. It's like, this sucks. I don't belong in the bottom. But, it's a matter of, I think, the key in a lot of these jobs, keep your mouth shut. You show up. Yeah. You do your job. You're not trying to change the world. You're just trying to get through. Do you enjoy that job on a daily basis? You probably see a lot of people, though. Interesting.
It's therapeutic to be able to have coworkers that you can talk to and relate to and say, oh, did you get a load of this situation? And, you can kind of relate to them all, and it's a good way to vent. But
do you enjoy the customers or the patients, the people that you deal with, or do you deal with?
It's just a reality. Some are pleasant as can be, and some are impossible. So you just, if you're working with somebody and somebody's impossible, when they leave, you just kind of like, roll your eyes and shrug and whatever. And your coworker's like, yeah, I know.
If you have that extra nod across the room, I get it, that makes it all okay.
You share the pain, and it just kind of
you can't sit there. Oh, yeah, I've worked in places where we've had, fisticuffs. and it's like, what is wrong with you people?
Well, some people, again, like drama. Mm-hmm. They like getting into it. They like talking behind people's backs, and they're always going to start something. And I did you hear about so and so? And it's best to avoid it.
I don't like the drama. It gives me a stomachache.
Right, because it never leads anywhere good.
It's with the coworkers. I can handle anything you throw out at me. As a customer, as a patient, you want to be as ugly as you can, as ridiculous as you can. Mm-hmm. I'm watching your show. It's okay. But if I'm working with you, that's my show. You're my coworker. Don't bring drama to me.
Yeah.
I'm watching you make a fool of yourself. I have no problem with that. I've always been able to say, I'm sorry, sir, or this or that. I never take it personally. I always wish I could be a trainer to say to people, when they start going off, it's like you get an out-of-body experience. It's like you're watching TV. You're like, wow, this person's really gone crazy. You never go, I said, sir. I never said that. I saw people would say, I said, calm down. And I would be like,
I said good day.
Yeah, I said the good day. But it's a whole, what would you made up something about the catchphrases that you would say to people when they have the same question, and it would be like, what can you be referring to? It was the questions, the same questions they had, and you wanted to be, for instance, when COVID happened, and you could not allow people in a certain room. Everybody was above the law at that point.
You will withdraw that. We were on the road somewhere, and it's just taking lines from our favorite movie.
A formulaic answer to these people coming in there. How come we can't have 17 family members when my wife just had a baby? And you would have to say the same crap that should be extremely. We already know this. Why am I having to explain?
Yeah, it should be obvious because a lot of those questions come from just. I am mystified why I am not special and entitled to receive more, more benefits or more permissions than somebody else or than everybody else.
Yeah, but you never lost your temper. I don't remember you ever saying you lost your temper with a patient or a client.
No.
Anything. It's more of the rules where the uppers, they're in their offices all day. Their corner windows, and they don't have a clue what you're doing down on the floor.
Well, again, if you're gonna scream into a pillow, you can, but your coworkers are a great sounding board because you're there for them, they're there for you.
Well, what I'm scared about that is they'll turn on you too.
Potentially, you got to be careful who you talk to sometimes.
If I say,
but you feel
I can't believe that she, scheduled me for this and that. Next thing you know, Shelley said that she thinks you're a bad scheduler.
Right.
And you're like, wait a second.
Well, what was that story we were always told growing up? That one guy at the station where Dad were.
Oh, yeah.
And he was just running his mouth, and Dad was just kind of nodding and agreeing. And
we think this, we think that.
Right.
I know. I've tried to skirt around it. I have a real hard time with, that's one of my problems with all my job hopping is I have a hard time with confrontation. And I don't really know how to, if something does kind of bend me the wrong way, I'm like, how do I come up with that? There was an episode at a place that I worked where a girl would come up to me. I was with a client. When I'm with my client, I'm in a bubble. Please don't disturb me. But if you want to join in the merriment or if you want to poke, okay. But there's certain things, common sense, to poke about. There's certain things, what are you doing?
Right.
And so how do I tell that person, can you not do this? Without hurting their feelings, and then them saying, "What's up her butt?" And it's like, ugh.
Yeah, there are certain kind of ways you can, like, if somebody is going a little too far with their insults or whatever, you kind of go, "Oh, all right," and you don't have to say, "Excuse me, could you not do that?" Because that will come off as like condescending,
right.
I'm ordering you around. And it works. That's what.
No, that's funny because it's just like that feels like we need a script or something.
Yeah, I think as we've gotten older too, we've learned to kind of temper that.
Yes.
I'm not going to just pop my cork here in front of everybody.
Oh my goodness! I used to pop my cork constantly.
Yeah,
I worked in a call center before, and things were scripted. Mm-hmm. And if the customer said this, you would respond with this. They said this, you respond with that. And it worked pretty much because you would overcome, things that they would, and if they weren't having it back in those days, you call them on the phone. I don't know why people just didn't have the presence of mind to hang up.
Right.
They just keep it going,
There was a guy just yesterday, if I'm anecdotal, and he was doing a food delivery. Mm-hmm. Now, we have this a lot. It's a large facility, and there are a lot of entrances, so food deliveries often get sent to the wrong place, and there's a little confusion. This particular delivery individual was about 2 inches taller than me, a real big guy, and right off the bat, I could tell he was already aggravated that he was being sent. He said, "Is this the 4th place I've been sent to?"
Uh-oh.
So here I am on the other side of that going, okay, I need to respond to him with, how can I help?
Yeah.
I'm not going to bark back at you the way you're barking at me, because obviously I had nothing to do with it. He just showed up at my window and said,
Right.
So I said, well, can I call over at the other office and see if he's over there? No, I just came from there. And so at that point, I was like, okay, there was nothing I could do. So I just kind of said nothing.
Yeah.
Because nothing I could say at that point would have placated him.
Yeah.
And so he calls the guy again, and I said, well, look, if you want to leave it here, if you get it sorted out with the guy, then he can pick it up here. And that's what happened. Yeah. He dropped it off, and he kind of left grumbling. And was like, well, whatever. But that's a situation where here's somebody being antagonistic towards you for something you had nothing to do with. So you're feeling like this is an injustice.
Well, in your position, you're like, hey, if you leave it here, I'll make sure they get it. Mm-hmm. So you went that extra mile. Like when I was at the ER and I worked at the desk, we'd have plenty of DoorDashes for the nurses and the doctors in the back. And nowadays it's a little different because they'll text you, it's here, they'll take a picture of it. But a few years ago, they just drop it off and leave. Yeah. I'm like, who's John? And so I'd have to run through the ER. John. I remember Dr. John.
Marcia.
Yeah. If I put doctor in front of it, then they would all turn. Dr. John. And they're like, oh, the food's here. And they just grab it and walk off. Like, no, thank you. No, thanks for leaving your desk. Thanks for trying to hunt me down. It's like, I should have just said, leave it here. I've had at another hospital, they would drop off milkshakes. And I would literally let them sit there and milk. Because I'm like, look, if you're not responsible enough, pick up your own milkshake. It's going to be put in the trash or it's going to melt. I'm sorry. I'm tired of that.
It depends, and obviously in some jobs you have enough downtime where you can go ahead and go that extra mile. I had just switched out and come back out to the other station today, and there was a little delivery there of some cookies, and I was like, I saw the guy on camera come in about an hour ago. These cookies have been sitting here. But the name was right on there, so I asked the ladies, do we have somebody by that name? Oh, okay, yeah, let me look it up. Here it is. I was like, okay, I'll take it straight to that room. It's like, how hard was that?
Right.
Not hard at all.
Right.
It takes so little, and it's not like, it's like, I'm so great because I went the extra mile. It's like, I really didn't. I didn't do much. It's like, but it comes back to us kind of, how can people be so inconsiderate and discourteous and this and that? It's like that's how a lot of people are.
And I think you're a lot better than me. You've learned early on how to set your boundaries. I tend to be, I'm a doormat, walk on me, thank you. And you're like, not doing that. And you just have that straight deadpan, and they go, okay, and they back right off.
Yeah, it's and maybe.
No matter what job it was.
Just a skill I developed. If I come in, I just give them a nice neutral look, and if they're friendly, we'll be on nice friendly terms.
Right.
If they're a little hostile, I don't know what I do exactly, but I don't create a defensive posture or anything like that, or hostile.
And I don't nowadays. Everybody's got their cell phone, and I'm not trying to be on YouTube with a stupid and heaven knows I've blown up, but I've never done it in like a public forum as far as I've done it at work, but not if I go into Walmart or something, but I saw this thing today just on YouTube or whatever. This guy, he was a checker at one of these home stores, cashier at a garden center. Mm-hmm. And this guy said, I want you to check the price. Somebody pulls out their cell phone. The kid said, take a picture of the item you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. He said, why are you giving me a problem? And the kid said, I'm not giving you a problem. First of all, grown man fighting with a 17-year-old. Right. And the kid loses it. Kid probably has all kinds of problems. Maybe he hates that job. Mm-hmm. And he's got his little homey, orange apron on, and he just hates that job with a passion. Mm. And so he starts cussing at the customer. And then here comes the assistant manager. That's uncalled for. Right. Go to the manager's office.
Well, that's straight out of the old movie Fast Times at Ridgemont High, when Judge Reinhold yells at the guy because the guy was yelling at him and insulting him, and Judge Reinhold fires back, and he gets fired.
Old version of the customer's always right has a second
caveat.
Yes. The customer... How does it go?
Oh, if customer is wrong, see rule number 1.
Well, no, it's a full quote. Rule number, let's see. No, that wasn't it. It was, the customer is always right is a motto or slogan, which exhorts service staff to give a high priority to customer satisfaction but it has a different, and it's not the rule number one. Somebody told me, shoot, I can't remember it, but it's not, the customer is not always right.
Well, real quickly, the customer is always human. Something I want to point out is the customer, like that guy I dealt with yesterday, might have just been having a bad day. Mm-hmm. Normally, he could be a real teddy bear. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So I would like to try and give everyone the benefit of the doubt. If they deal with me, in a nasty manner, or even right off the bat, it's like, I will try to remember. Maybe they're having a bad day. Mm-hmm. Maybe they got some bad news. They're hurting, this or that. Just try and take that into consideration and just still be polite and courteous and professional.
Yeah, that's what I remember my sister saying, always assume good intent. Because sometimes when people say things, people are taken aback. What do you mean by that? Maybe they're just saying, can you take a picture? Because they're confused. I'm not an over-explainer. I assume, which you should have assumed, you know what I'm talking about. I assume you know my character. And if somebody doesn't, then that's on them. But I'm sure that's not the right way to do it.
I went over to a friend's house last Friday, and he had gotten this big box of candy from England that his friend sent him from England. And so a bunch of us were trying different ones, and there was one that was real terrible, and I took it, and I was like, ooh, and then one of the guys goes, see, even Mark doesn't like it. I was like, what do you mean even Mark doesn't like it? I will eat anything because I'm a bottomless pit. I mean, I wasn't seriously aggravated, but I was kind of like jokingly saying, hey, man, that's could easily be taken the wrong way.
Right. You're like, yeah, I'm glad you said that. You said something instead of, just...
Instead of blowing up at him or really taking offense or even phony offense.
Oh, men don't really...
Professional, the whole, I'm offended thing is...
I'm over it,
Yeah.
I mean, and I think it helps, too. I remember when I was working at this call center, this lady, she could say whatever she wanted. She's probably in her late 60s. I was probably in my 40s. And whatever she said, never get in trouble. Nothing. I got pulled in the office all the time. I said, Barb, why do you not ever get in trouble? She goes, honey, because I'm old. And I'm like, I'm starting to feel that. There is ageism for sure. Yeah. But once you're in, people... They give you a card. They're like, oh, she's old. They almost are afraid to correct me. They're so... Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. And the male equivalent is these old guys that go to a young, beautiful woman and say, hi there, beautiful. Boy, I wish I was 20 years younger or whatever. Oh, that's charming.
Yes. She's meanwhile going, you're a creep. Ew. We have a gorgeous girl. Beautiful. A lot of them are model looking. And the guys go, I'll wait for her.
Oh, brother.
I used to be like, I can cut hair too. But I'm like, that's fine. Get your jollies. Go ahead. It's just so silly, though. And the girls are like, oh, gosh, I got this guy. It's funny. But I do like that. I'm trying not to hurt people's feelings, but I do like that I can say kind of what I want now. Or I don't get that offended if they say things to me. They're like, you're so funny. And I was like, Yeah.
Funny how? What do you mean? I'm like a clown? I amuse you?
Let me amuse you? I'm trying to find that quote, and I can't find it. But
it's from Goodfellas.
No, not that quote. The other one about, the customer is right in matters of taste. Here it is. All right, here we go. It's not the customer is always right. It's the customer is always right in matters of taste. It goes back to the early 1900s. That the hotelier, whatever, Caesar Ritz, put on the Ritz, he said, if a diner complains about a dish or the wine, immediately remove it and replace it with no questions asked. It's not necessarily bad policy, but he's like, the customer is always right in matters of taste. So when you're being a jerk to somebody who's just say, okay, instead I'm the customer, whoop-de-doop-de-doo. Yeah. You need to have, I wish so bad. I've always felt like this. If you don't like me, don't come back. You'll come back. I got miffed at one of the superstores around here. And because I felt like every time I went in there, you know what I'm talking about, they look at you like you're stealing constantly. And, you get tired of it. But then it's the bringing my dog into there, my little 10-pound dog who is emotional support certified. Mm-hmm. And I go in there, you can't bring an animal in here. And I'm like, I go in there at least 2 or 3 times a week, and I buy from your store. And I'm not trying to say I'm the queen and, you have policies, but be consistent. And why do you have to say it like that?
Right.
You know, and I get it. If I walk in with a moose or a goat, I mean, I understand, like, we got to do something about this. I'm like, it's not that bad. It's not that serious. Like, they say service animals only. Well, the place that I worked at, they said if you had a service animal, and even like you said, we are told to say, you can only bring it in here. You have to show the card, and then you have to make it do a command. Now, my dog doesn't do any command.
Right.
He can't sit. He can't do anything.
Right.
He just pees, and that's it. And so,
I mean, to pee.
bite his tail, band his ankle. So, I mean, if they were to push me on that. But it's a matter of how you're saying it to somebody, you know.
Yeah, there needs to be consistency, too. We run into that, and ever since COVID especially, it's like, let's have one solid policy because, you know, my department has certain guides and standards that it was given, you know, from up on high. But if other departments don't want to do that, we have no sway over what other departments do.
Yeah.
So if another department tells a visitor, hey, this is the rule, and it's not the rule, and then they come in the next day, oh, I'm sorry, you were misinformed. It's like, what kind of joint you running here anyway?
Oh my gosh,
you know,
I bet that drives you crazy.
It's a little vexing, but it's something we've had to learn to deal with.
Well, and that's kind of like I interviewed Nancy Carroll yesterday, and she was talking about military. I said, how did you stand all those rules? And she said, it's just something we knew we had to do, and we did it. I'm like, why am I such a, you know, rebel when it comes to, I'm not going to do it. I mean, I'm like, I don't have defiance disorder, but I'm like, I have to know, I'm one of those people, I have to know why it's in place, and then, I mean, there's reasons, but it has to make sense to me. That's probably not a good thing.
Yeah, and maybe you're talking about a different time, too. I mean, there may have been times where she's like, oh, okay, I don't agree with this rule, but but it was before, you know.
If I don't agree with it, I'm going to say something. Yeah. Because otherwise, nothing ever gets changed. Ever. And you're like, what is the old, remember the old law that said you can't carry ice cream in your back pocket? I mean, obviously, nobody bothered to take it off the books because nobody's stupid enough to do that. But at some point, if somebody wanted to carry ice cream in their back pocket, why didn't they just say, you know, I'm going to fight for this, you know? I'm going to look that up. You remember that?
No.
Ice cream in your back pocket law. Okay. It's a law in Kentucky.
Oh, one of those loony laws?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was like a saying. It's
illegal
like
ice creams. It's ridiculous laws. But I guess we're talking about policies, which are, oh my gosh. Can you imagine being one of those heads of department and you just have one freaking policy meeting after the other? I remember when I was in college and one of my PhD professors came out of the office, just boiling mad. Her face was red. I'm so tired of these stupid meetings where they're doing nothing but pontificating. And I was like, I love you so much. And she was just like, I'm done. You know, I was like, it was so funny.
There was a kid when I was at the college security job who didn't want to wear shoes in the eating area.
Oh,
and I said, okay, you have to wear shoes in the eating area.
And he's an employee.
He's a student.
Oh, he's a student, okay.
But, you know, 18-year-old kid. But I was sent to go deal with him. I said, yeah, you have to go back to your dorm and put your shoes on because this is a eating area. It's sanitary. And just explained it very plainly. And he went all sovereign citizen on me. He wanted my name, my badge number. He said, this is a free country. I don't have to. And I said, well, it's actually a private campus. And you signed a document that said you would abide by the rules of the campus. And the rules say you have to wear shoes in eating areas.
There you go.
And he didn't have much of an answer for that. But, yeah, people want to...
But when you think about it, the shoes are much probably dirtier than a foot. But I understand you could, if you needed explanation, sir, if you stepped on a piece of glass, got it embedded in your foot, we could be liable for that.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have spent 20 minutes going over every nuance of why he should wear shoes.
But if you say, I'll be careful, just say, no. Stupid. Oy vey. It's just, you know. But, like, wear flip-flops. Well, then, because I worked at a place, you couldn't have open-toed shoes.
Yeah.
And then people down the line, they just didn't enforce it. Pretty soon people wore open-toed shoes. No problem.
Yeah.
And nobody's ever said a thing. It's just one of those things. I'm going to read this. Why is it illegal to carry ice cream in your back pocket? It doesn't really say. I don't know. Maybe, who knows? Maybe it was going to be on the street.
I mean, if somebody did it defiantly just as a gag for a YouTube video or something, and they said, look, officer, would the officer be obliged to put them in cuffs?
He wouldn't know the law, though.
Well, like if you informed them, it's like, look, I'm technically breaking the law. Here it is. Here's the rule book. And
it's like the Bridesmaids movie where she's like, look, I'm driving crazy. Here's some other ones. Okay, these are so funny. I love these. Oops. Okay. Cats may not molest cars. Okay. Poor kitty cats. Okay, this one was no ice cream. Why is it illegal, the ice cream in your back pocket? What does it really say? It just makes
it seems like it would be because somebody actually did that and it caused a problem. Mm-hmm. It was one goofball who said, I don't have I'm carrying 3 ice cream cones and I don't have enough hands, so I will put one in my back pocket. And it slipped out of his back pocket and somebody slipped on it. So their solution was make that specific thing illegal.
This says it is illegal to carry an ice cream cone in your back pocket in the Commonwealth. Naturally, I have never seen anyone break this law, but I'd imagine the risk of going on a limb that most people hold their ice cream cones in their hands. But laws are on the books for a reason, and there's a reason behind the ice cream law, and it's about horse thievery. Horse thievery. Okay, yes, horse thieves should be punished. But I can't help but note how clever that is. It is it is a little extreme if, why would that have anything to do with, okay, I really don't know.
See, I thought it was gonna say like that was a technique that horse thieves used back in the turn of the century.
Right.
They would put an ice cream cone in their back pocket, and the horse would be attracted to it like a carrot on a stick.
You know what?
So that was some technique they would lead away.
That's probably right.
So, I didn't do anything, officer. The horse just followed me into my barn.
I bet you $1 million that's right. Huh? Yes, because you put it and you walk and it follows you.
So you have cracked the code. You have to think like a horse thief.
Oh, my word. Well, that's awesome. And on that note, thank you so much for being part of my podcast. And we can have some more conversations in the future, possibly.
Absolutely.
And you have a wonderful life. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.